You've heard the phrase, the worn-out sentiment, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. We all nod when we hear it, treating it like a universal truth, but it's usually just a platitude until it hits you personally. When it comes to a breakup, that phrase stops being a generic quote and becomes a physical sensation, a sudden, gut-wrenching clarity. This isn't just about regretting a fight or a mistake. It's about the profound, disorienting void that appears once your presence is completely, definitively absent from her life. That's the emotional gravity we're talking about, and it pulls her back in surprising, often subtle ways. Think about the dynamics right after a split. Initially, there's often relief, even a sense of freedom for her. She focuses on her own space, her friends, her independence. She might genuinely believe she's fine, that the separation was necessary, even beneficial. The initial silence, the distance you create, confirms her choice. But as weeks turn into months, that initial relief starts to fade. The distraction wears off. The quiet moments in her routine, the spaces you used to fill, start feeling empty, not peaceful. That's when the self-reflection begins, sharp and undeniable. The realization doesn't arrive with fireworks or a dramatic confession. It arrives quietly, insidiously. Maybe she's scrolling through her phone and pauses on an old photo of you two, something goofy she'd forgotten about. Maybe she hears a song in a cafe, a song you used to play on road trips. These tiny moments aren't just nostalgia. They're evidence of a life she discarded, a consistent, valuable presence she chose to remove. She starts comparing the men she meets now, the dates, the brief flings, to the stable, specific dynamic you shared. And in those comparisons, the loss is quantified. Then comes the test. Your phone lights up. A text message. It's safe, non-committal, maybe even cryptic. Hey, I saw that movie you always talked about. Or perhaps just an emoji reaction to a story you posted. This isn't random. It's a deliberate action born from that internal realization. She's reaching out because the comfortable assumption that you'd always be there, even in the background, has been violently proven wrong. She senses you've moved on, that you've truly detached, and that's when the panic sets in. That's the moment the emotional gravity of your absence becomes too heavy to ignore. We're going to peel back those layers, exposing the precise behaviors and internal shifts that signal she has finally and fully processed what she let go of. This understanding isn't about getting her back. It's about recognizing the power you hold in your own forward momentum and deciding how to handle the inevitable echo of the past. It's time to explore the playbook for handling her return to your orbit. The first signal she's recognizing the gap isn't a tearful phone call or a handwritten letter. It's far more subtle, a cautious movement in the digital realm. We call it the breadcrumb trail because it's a series of small, calculated actions designed to mark her presence without demanding a response. This phase is all about testing the temperature of the water before risking a full dive into emotional vulnerability. She won't come out and say, "I miss you." That's too direct, too risky. It invites immediate rejection. Instead, she aims for plausible deniability. Picture this. You get a notification that she liked a photo. Not a recent one, mind you. It's a picture from 6 months ago, maybe even a year, buried deep in your feed. That isn't an accidental tap. She had to navigate to that post deliberately. It's a silent, undeniable signal that she was scrolling through your life, meticulously reviewing the history you shared. It's her way of whispering, "I'm looking at you," without saying a single word. She hopes you notice the action and wonder why she's doing it, putting the emotional effort back on your side. This reconnaissance mission extends beyond likes. Maybe she starts watching your Instagram or Snapchat stories consistently, yet never comments. She's consuming your current life without participating in it. She's checking your vibe, seeing if you look happy, gauging your progress. She might even execute a soft follow, only to quickly unfollow, measuring your immediate reaction. These tiny digital maneuvers are low-stakes ways of confirming whether the door is completely shut, or if there's a hinge still loose. It's crucial to understand her motivation here. She's not necessarily ready to reconcile or even admit she made a mistake. More often, she's seeking validation. She wants to ensure you haven't completely forgotten her, that she still holds some emotional weight. It's a test of her own ego and a way to manage the anxiety of her realization. If you respond too quickly, too eagerly, you confirm she still controls the dynamic, easing her fear of loss. If you ignore the breadcrumbs entirely, she realizes the gravity of her decision, and the emotional work intensifies on her end. These small, seemingly innocuous digital touches are incredibly intentional. They are designed to plant a seed of doubt or curiosity in your mind. Before you react, take a step back. Observe the pattern. Is this a one-off or is it a sustained, deliberate campaign? Understanding this distinction is vital. Sometimes the action truly is just nostalgia. Other times, it's the quiet beginning of her attempt to re-establish a connection, driven by the piercing clarity that comes only with absence. Your response, or lack thereof, will define the direction of the interaction. Hold your ground and observe the full trail before deciding to pick up any crumbs. When she finally transitions from the subtle breadcrumbs to direct contact, the conversation is still fundamentally guarded. She avoids anything remotely affectionate or sentimental. This direct approach is the next level of the low-stakes engagement, a tactical maneuver born out of self-preservation. She won't confess that she misses the sound of your voice or the way you used to make coffee. That's too risky. That opens the door to immediate, painful rejection. Instead, her opening line is deliberately mundane, perhaps something like, "How's your sister doing? I heard she moved," or, "Did your team ever finish that huge project?" This safe, practical framing is not random. It's a calculated move to maintain an illusion of normalcy. She is trying to bypass the emotional weight of the breakup and position the interaction as a casual check-in between former acquaintances. Nobody wants to be the one to lay their heart bare and risk being ignored or shot down. She's adhering to the principle that people are naturally risk-averse, especially in matters of the heart. Her aim is to see if you will meet her halfway, relieving her of the pressure to be vulnerable. By starting with a neutral topic, work, a mutual friend, a distant memory, she is essentially throwing a soft pitch. If you catch it and return a friendly, neutral response, she gains confidence. She interprets your lightheartedness as an openness to further dialogue, a sign that the emotional waters aren't dangerously turbulent. She's looking for permission to continue the conversation without having to explicitly own up to the reason she reached out in the first place: the fear of loss. Think about your intentions in this moment. Are you open to a genuine reconciliation, or are you just enjoying the validation of her returning attention? If your goal is reconciliation, keep the initial exchanges light, but maintain your integrity. Do not immediately revert to your old dynamic or jump into emotional conversations. You must establish a new foundation. However, if your intention is to continue moving forward, this is the time to be respectfully but unequivocally firm. A gentle reply that acknowledges the past while clearly indicating your current direction will prevent false hope. Something like, "It's good to hear from you, but I'm really focused on new things now," sends a clear message without being punitive. Her subtle messages, while seemingly about work or a mutual acquaintance, are almost always a prelude to something deeper. She's building a small bridge of comfortable interaction, hoping it leads to a point where she feels safe enough to share the real reason she contacted you. Your response dictates the stability of that bridge. If you give in too easily, the emotional gravity she feels is lessened, and she may retreat again. If you stand firm, maintaining your boundary while remaining polite, you compel her to take the necessary step toward genuine vulnerability, if that's truly what she seeks. Recognize this phase for what it is: a crucial test of your boundaries and her sincerity. Here is where the true psychological shift occurs. Your absence, the solid fact that you are no longer reliably present, is the force that strips away all her comforting illusions. This distance, this space you've created, compels a brutal, undeniable clarity she couldn't achieve while you were still in her orbit. She might have initially tried to bury the breakup under distractions. New hobbies, busy weekends, perhaps even rushed, superficial dates. But those things only mask the problem. They don't solve the core issue. For a time, she likely operated under a deep, subconscious security blanket, the belief that you were still fundamentally accessible. You were the comfortable constant she could fall back on if her new life proved disappointing. That assumption, that safety net, prevented her from truly facing the consequences of her decision. But when she observes your continued silence, your unwavering focus on your own path, no weak replies to her breadcrumbs, no immediate return of her casual outreach, that illusion shatters. This realization triggers a profound fear. It's the fear that you have actually fully and irreversibly moved on. She starts to grasp the permanence of the loss. This isn't just about missing you. It's about confronting the possibility that a valuable, irreplaceable resource is gone forever. This psychological concept is called loss aversion. We are wired to feel the pain of losing something we already possess much more strongly than the pleasure of gaining something new. For her, you moved from being a given quantity to a valuable loss, and that pain drives impulsive behavior. The questions begin to flood her mind. Did I undervalue him? Why didn't I appreciate the stability he offered? The clarity gained from absence is harsh because it forces her to evaluate the breakup based on your current reality, which excludes her, rather than on her past fantasy of what your future might be. She sees your continued growth, your forward momentum, and realizes that the version of you she broke up with, the one she perhaps took for granted, is gone, replaced by a stronger, more independent man. This fear isn't necessarily love. It's often panic. It's the impulsive reaction to realizing a high-value item has slipped away. If you have genuinely been focusing on self-improvement, using the no-contact phase to elevate your life, that progress acts like a giant spotlight, illuminating her mistake. Your success isn't just a personal win, it's the external confirmation of your value, and it solidifies the reality of her loss. Stay anchored in that growth. The power dynamic has shifted, not because you sought validation from her, but because you chose self-respect over chasing her. That unshakable commitment to your own progress is the biggest trigger for her feeling of definitive loss. Hold steady. When she finally breaks through the barriers of casual conversation, what exactly is fueling her impulse to connect? It's not a single, clear emotion. It's a messy, volatile combination, an emotional cocktail that swirls with regret, nostalgia, and a sharp sting of guilt. These powerful forces combine to compel her actions, prompting the desperate need for contact and confirmation. First, there is the undeniable punch of regret. This goes beyond missing the routine. It's the realization of missed opportunity, the appreciation she failed to show, and the relationship potential she carelessly discarded. She regrets the trivial arguments, the moment she prioritized superficial concerns over your connection, and the failure to recognize the value of what she had when it was easily accessible. This regret weighs heavily because it implicates her choices directly. She realizes she played a primary role in dismantling something worthwhile. Secondly, nostalgia floods her memories. Crucially, this is a highly filtered version of your history. The mind conveniently edits out the conflict, the incompatibility, and the underlying issues that caused the breakup. She remembers the laughter, the inside jokes, the secure feeling of your partnership, the highlight reel, not the director's cut. This romanticized view of the past is what makes you seem so appealing now. She's chasing the comfort of that idealized memory, not necessarily the reality of the challenging partnership you shared. Finally, there's the subtle, corrosive pressure of guilt. This is her subconscious response to realizing the pain she inflicted, either through the breakup itself or through her failure to be a better partner. To alleviate this feeling, she often seeks validation or an emotional resolution. As psychological thinkers often observe, people frequently pursue closure primarily to make themselves feel better about their own past decisions. Her attempts to reconnect can sometimes be less about rekindling the relationship and more about absolving her conscience. She needs to know you are okay, or perhaps that you don't harbor resentment, so she can continue her own life path without the burden of her perceived fault. This powerful mix of feelings is the engine driving her outreach. It's important to recognize that these emotions are about her journey towards self-healing and acceptance, not necessarily a solid foundation for rebuilding. Her sudden interest stems from her internal conflict, from the shock of realizing your finality. Your job in this moment is to maintain self-awareness. Understand the depth of her emotions but refuse to let them steer your decisions. Acknowledge her feelings with empathy, but don't allow them to dictate your future. Your continued growth, your emotional stability, and your well-being must remain the absolute priority. Do not sacrifice your hard-won peace for the sake of easing her guilt or responding to her selective memory. Your path forward is the only one that truly matters. While the realization of loss often leads to transient regret, sometimes, a return to communication can genuinely happen for the right reasons. Not every breakup is a catastrophic failure rooted in fundamental incompatibility. Some separations are merely the result of mistimed decisions, external pressures, or simple, correctable misunderstandings that spiraled out of control. In these specific rare instances, the space created by the loss actually allows both people to cool down, gain perspective, and address the solvable issues that led to the split. Think of breakups caused by stress, conflicting work schedules, or geographical distance. These are situational problems, not character flaws. If the underlying bond, the core love, respect, and mutual vision, remained intact, a sincere conversation months later can truly clear the air. The realization that she lost you, combined with her own personal growth during the absence, might create a fresh, stable starting point. When two people have genuinely used the time apart to fix their personal issues, she addressed her anxiety, you focused on your work-life balance, the original, superficial barrier might collapse. I know couples who broke up simply because they were young, immature, or dealing with external family pressures that made a partnership impossible at that specific time. Months later, older, wiser, and with the external pressure removed, their accidental reconnection at a mutual friends gathering led to an honest appraisal. They realized the core affection was never gone. It was simply choked by temporary circumstances. They chose to start fresh, essentially dating the new, improved versions of each other. That's a second chance built on a sound foundation. However, it is vital to apply rigorous scrutiny to the initial cause. You must ask the critical questions. What truly ended this relationship? If the breakup stemmed from deep, systemic issues, like dishonesty, control, continuous disrespect, or fundamental value clashes, then the risk of reconciliation far outweighs the potential reward. Going back to a relationship poisoned by core incompatibility is not a second chance. It's a guaranteed relapse into the same cycle of pain. Her regret in this case is just a temporary emotional blip, and returning will only expose you to the original wounds again. The purpose of this realization is not to be tricked into repeating history. It's an opportunity for a high-level review. If her outreach is accompanied by a genuine, demonstrated change in behavior, not just words but consistent, observable action addressing the original problem, then you might consider opening the dialogue. If she's only offering vague regrets and nostalgia, it's a clear signal that the reconnection is not for the right reasons. Every connection does not demand reconciliation. Sometimes the right choice is to recognize the growth, value the clarity, and firmly choose to continue your separate, healthier path forward. Your future depends on distinguishing genuine, positive change from fleeting emotional panic. The message arrives. It's simple, perhaps just a line or two, but it carries the full weight of your shared history. I've been thinking about you. In that instant, you are handed immense power. You stand at a critical crossroads, and the decision you face is not about validating her feelings. It's entirely about charting the course of your own future. This is the moment to pause, breathe, and recognize the authority you possess. You must view this situation through the lens of your own evolution. Think back to the person you were when the relationship ended, and contrast that with the strength and clarity you possess today. You've invested time, effort, and pain into forging a new, independent path. You've established new boundaries, discovered new capacities, and committed to a higher version of yourself. Your primary commitment now is to protect that progress. The crucial choice is between retracing old, comfortable, and ultimately destructive paths, or stepping boldly into the unfamiliar but purposeful unknown. Going back to what's familiar offers a temporary easing of tension, a return to known dynamics, but it carries a massive risk, repeating the exact failures that caused the initial split. Relationships often fail because their foundations weren't designed to support long-term growth. Choosing to cross back over that bridge doesn't guarantee a repair. It often just resets the timer on the same inevitable disaster. Your decision should be dictated by your values, your goals, and your fiercely protected self-worth. If the old relationship requires you to shrink, compromise your core ambition, or tolerate disrespect, then the answer must be a resounding no. Her realization of loss is a testament to your value, but your acceptance of her outreach should not be driven by that validation. It must be driven by a clear-eyed assessment of the future you are building for yourself. When she reaches out, treat it as an external signal, not an internal command. Reflect deeply on the journey that brought you to this point. Remember the pain, the learning, and the growth. Is risking all of that for the sake of familiarity truly a worthwhile gamble? Honoring your evolution is the ultimate form of self-respect. It means trusting in your own strength to navigate the future alone, if necessary, rather than clinging to a past that failed to sustain you. Do not allow her emotional realization to manipulate your hard-earned perspective. Stand firm in the person you have become. Your power lies in your detachment, your stability, and your commitment to your brightest future. When you respond, do so from a place of grounded clarity. Your answer defines your boundaries and solidifies your commitment. Either you choose to risk repeating the past, or you choose to trust the path you are currently forging. The future belongs to the person who respects their own growth enough to protect it. Ultimately, the entire cycle, her realization of loss, her cautious attempts to reconnect, and your firm navigation of the crossroads, delivers one vital, overarching lesson. It teaches you about yourself. The true value extracted from this experience is not found in rekindling the relationship, but in the individual clarity gained by both parties. For her, the pain of loss serves as a powerful mirror. It forces her to confront her own actions, her lack of appreciation, and the complacency that often creeps into long-term connections. Her realization is a moment of personal reckoning, a harsh lesson in recognizing and valuing a good thing while she still possessed it. It's an opportunity for her to evolve, to understand that consistent presence and genuine effort are non-negotiable foundations of any lasting bond. Whether she acts on this lesson or merely retreats into regret is her own journey. For you, this entire process is a validation of your strength and a final confirmation of your self-worth. By maintaining your distance, focusing on your growth, and refusing to be drawn back by easy sentiment, you demonstrate an unshakable commitment to your own well-being. You learn to trust your intuition, to honor the boundaries you've established, and to recognize that your happiness is not dependent on her presence or her approval. When she returns to your orbit, it confirms your value, but the refusal to chase that validation confirms your maturity. The profound truth is that healthy relationships are not built on one person chasing a former comfort while the other desperately seeks closure. Sustainable, joyful connections require something far stronger. Two whole, complete, emotionally sovereign individuals coming together. If she is realizing her loss because she feels incomplete without you, that's not a foundation for a future. That's a dependency seeking renewal. If you are tempted to return simply because her attention validates your ego, that's an insecurity seeking a temporary fix. Neither scenario leads to lasting happiness. The objective, the ultimate goal of all the heartache in the distance, is genuine growth. It's about both of you graduating from the dynamic that failed. Whether you decide to talk, reconcile, or definitively close the door, the decision must be made from a place of radical self-respect. You must walk away from the table knowing you acted with integrity, honored your personal progress, and chose the path that best served your future. The clarity that arises when someone realizes they've lost you is a gift, a clear sign that your value is understood. Your final power is the ability to choose how, and with whom, you invest that immense value next. And remember, the best connections happen when two whole individuals come together, not when one person is chasing another. Thanks for watching, and if this resonated with you, share your thoughts. I'd love to hear your story, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights.